if you have a nice and beautiful home, you want to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to keep your home safe and make sure your safe space is your sanctuary and not allow people to invade that. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. And one of the things that tends to happen, especially when you're young or you're unassuming and you get a taste of freedom and you have a nice place, or even if you're not necessarily young but you're independent, you know, there are people who will sell you a sob story about, how their, things aren't working out in their home and they need a place to stay. Or, you may have a relationship and that partner is jumping at the chance to get into your spot. And I want to say, I can't tell you what to do, but I would say you really want to you really want to think a lot about that and allowing people into your home, especially if they don't have a good record of having a home, or you don't know a lot about them. Not everybody is going to value and take care of your home, the way that you would want to, or be in your space in the way that you need them to. And sometimes people will get into your home and act a damn fool and just mess up your stuff just because you've got it like that and they don't, and they feel some type of way. And even if they have a little bit of money, but if they feel some type of way about you, they will mess up your stuff. So here's a funny little example of that. If you watch the Chappelle show, Dave Chappelle did a skit where he was Rick James, and it was Rick James, Charlie Murphy, and Eddie Murphy. And Rick James got on Eddie Murphy's couch in his skit with his platform boots that were muddy, and he had these muddy boots on Eddie Murphy's couch, and he was saying, "F that couch, F your couch, Eddie Murphy. They should have never gave you black men money," or something to that. It was something to that effect, and he just muddied up Eddie Murphy's couch, right? And this is a similar situation when you allow people in your home that don't really respect your home or the rules or just you as a person, or they feel a type of way like, Rick James did allegedly about Eddie Murphy having money, right? And they'll intentionally mess up stuff. And you'll learn this a hard way because you'll be nice, you'll be super accommodating, and then you'll allow someone in your home. And the other thing about that is when you allow people in your home being nice and accommodating, it is not so easy to get people out of your home as it is to let them in, because there are a lot of things once someone starts getting mail at your home and all of this other kind of stuff. They start having rights and blah blah blah. So you want to be careful with that even more. There are also people that will come into your home and will destroy your property in a fit of rage. Or if they get angry with you, or if you try to set limits with you, they will be dirty, leave dishes out, or they will just plumb out, destroy, things because they didn't pay for it. Therefore it doesn't have any value to them. If they didn't pay for it, they don't care what happens to it as a result. Whereas you might, you're going to treat the things that you bought and paid for with care, but they didn't buy and pay for anything, so they don't care. And you have enough money, so you can always buy another one. So even more reason that they can go and just sort of mess up your stuff just like that. And when it comes to, property destruction and violence, that is definitely a huge red flag that things could escalate beyond your standard, um, beyond your standard form of abuse or things like that. Violence, when it comes to property destruction, can certainly lead to things like fatalities and things like that. So it's definitely something that you want to be careful with. So a good example of this was, I don't really watch the show, but I did see a clip on TikTok. There was a clip on the show Love After Lockup. And in that show, Love After Lockup, I forget the name of the one. I feel like it was Justine or something like that. But she was with a man, and she had an autistic son, and she would never let him like discipline her autistic son. because he would just fly into these fits of rage. And then, there was an episode that I saw, you know, might have been the same little clip or whatever, but that man was punching holes in the walls of her home. So he had gotten discharged out of prison, and she wouldn't allow him to discipline or, talk about consequences with her autistic son, but he was also punching holes in the wall. That's a huge red flag. It's also a huge red flag, the fact that she was, it appeared to me, and I don't know them, it appeared to me that she was trying to overcompensate for his anger and trying to hide and trying to maneuver and trying to be there at all times. She had just had a baby and all this other kind of stuff, I think. So she was really trying to do double duty. But this is an example of like someone that is unpredictable, and I think in that she knows has a tendency to escalate, to the point where it's inappropriate and to the point of no return. And there's a level of dangerousness. I don't care what anybody says. The level of dangerousness associated when you have people that destroy property. They cannot control their emotions to the point where they're ripping doors off hinges. They're putting holes in your wall. They're setting things on fire in your home. Things can get really wild and really crazy really fast. And that's what we saw on camera. So I can only imagine what happens off camera. This can happen on a smaller scale, even with like get-togethers or having other people over, as well, where they just don't respect your home, and they spill things everywhere. They muddy up, good things. They break things and things like that. So, again, be careful about allowing people in your home, and allowing them to, that's something that people should have to earn, family included, family especially. They should earn that, privilege to be able to come into your home. And if they don't earn it, or even if they may have earned it at one point in time, but they're not acting right, I would say cut it off. Never allow yourself to feel, as much as you can help it, uncomfortable in your own home. The other thing too is, if you're in a relationship and that's usually a red flag when you're in a relationship and you come home and you don't even like being in your own home because the energy is so negative. You have a person in your home that's very volatile and that can go off and be disrespectful with your things, with you, and with everybody there in your home at a moment's notice. So that's a red flag, and you should pay attention to that. Hope that helps. Thanks so much.